Please sit down. Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur le greffier.
Yara Arasa. Charlie Baker.
Présent.
Lexi Brooks.
Présente.
Jack Byrne.
Présent.
Lewis Carroll.
Présent.
Eve Carruthers.
Présente.
Alaric Corbyn.
Présent.
Alicia de Oliveira.
Présente.
Penelope Deschamps.
Présente.
Travis Durkin.
Présent.
Thomas Gomez.
Présent.
Ashley Good.
Présente.
Summer Hines. Oscar LeBruy. Keith Luce.
Présent.
Oliver McCready.
Présent.
Felix McKinnon.
Présent.
Maya Palladino.
Présente.
Marlon Phillips. Leah Povieska.
Présente.
Melissa Rodriguez.
Présente.
Alana Royston.
Présente.
Mark Sylvester.
Présent.
Megan Thorne.
Présente.
Les États sont constitués. So we will now have prayers led by Penelope Deschamps. Penelope.
Notre Père qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite en la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien et nous pardonne nos offenses comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car à toi est la règne, la puissance et la gloire au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Thank you. So we have communications by the presiding officer, that's me, and really there's only one thing I want to say to you, and that is welcome, a very warm welcome to you all as members of the Jersey Youth Assembly. Welcome also to those in the public gallery. I understand that this is only the second time that the new Youth Assembly has met. But I have to say, it's the first time that I presided over a youth assembly, so this is a learning experience for me as well. I hope you will understand that. So, as I understand, we noted at the last sitting of the Jersey Youth Assembly, this is a new format. It brings together the former Youth Assembly and the former Youth Parliament in a, what we hope, is a more flexible and accessible format. And I know that both scrutiny and government, represented by ministers here, have been grateful for the views and input of the Youth Assembly over the course of the last few months. So as you may have noticed, we're approaching a General Assembly, or General Election on the 7th of June. And it's even more important that young people such as yourselves are involved in the promotion and recognition of democracy in our island. That is very important. We have to encourage participation and ensure that people take up their democratic right to vote and exercise it. So again, I thank you all gathered here and doing so much to support and engage with that right, that you're promoting it just by being here. I understand that the inaugural Youth Assembly was held in December, and I understand that ministers would agree when I say that the Youth Assembly members kept ministers on their toes with their questions, and I'm sure you're going to do that this afternoon. So that session was not webcast or open to the public. But I remind everyone here that this session will be public, and we have people in the public gallery. So I want you all, and I hope you will, have a wonderful afternoon. And I'm sure, judging by the questions and the debate topics that are listed on the order paper, it's going to be a very interesting assembly. So I'm sure that the ministers want to respond to your questions, so let's make a start. So the first item on the order paper is question time. And I call upon Lee Huesca to ask a question of Deputy Mary Hegarat of St Helier North, who is the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Lee.
Will the Minister advise whether there has been an increase in drug-related arrests and prosecutions within the last 5 years, and will she detail the changes in volume year on year?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the question in relation to this topic. What has been issued is a summary of the offences, and I won't go through every single year because obviously I'm conscious of time, sir. As seen in the table that has been provided, the overall levels of drug-related arrests in Jersey have trended downwards since 2020, with a slight uplift in 2024 and a decrease through 25 that was quite quick back to pre-2024 levels. The table also shows a decrease in recorded drug offences since 2020, with levels stabling, as I said, between 160 and 169 between 2021 and 2023, before declining again in 2024 and more drastically in 2025. However, as the number of recorded offences decreased, the percentage of those offences which were either charged or sent to a parish hall inquiry increased from an already high level of 92% in 2020 to a stable 95 to 96% between 22 and 24, before arriving at 100% charge parish hall inquiry level rate in 2025. Of course, noting that the 25 figures are not as yet complete, and some live cases contain suspected drug offences that are still under investigation by the States of Jersey Police. The arrests figure was calculated by counting all the arrests in the relevant period that contained the word drug in the field reason for arrest. Basically, the offences include possession of a controlled substance, possession of a controlled substance with intent to supply, supplying a controlled substance, importing a controlled substance, produce, cultivate a controlled substance, other drugs offences, for example, conceal proceeds, obstruction, concerned in supply, permit premises for production supply. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. So are there any supplementary questions for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs? No? Well, in that case, oh, there is a supplementary. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I ask the Minister, how will she ensure these drug offenders receive adequate support for their addiction?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The reason that particularly young offenders, sir, and old offenders as well, go to parish hall inquiries is actually to ensure that they are dealt with at a lower level. Within that parish hall inquiry, they will obviously be seen by the duty centre. Within those processes, it will be advised that there are places where they can go, as, for example, the Drug and Alcohol Advice Centre. So therefore, they are able to be advised of the opportunities of those services. And it is important for Jersey as an island to ensure that people who are taking drugs are looked after properly within our system, and that includes, obviously, mental health facilities as well.
Thank you, Minister. Any other supplementary questions for the Minister? Yes, Jack.
Thank you, sir. What types of drugs are currently in circulation in Jersey?
I don't have specific data, sir, in relation to specific drugs. However, generally, the island will have most types of drug that they have anywhere else. So there will be cannabis, heroin, MDFs. There will be all sorts of drugs which will be available in the UK, which will be available in Jersey. So I think there will be every single drug that you can get anywhere else, there will be available in Jersey, unfortunately.
Any other supplementary questions for the Minister? Right. I think, Felix, you were marginally first. Felix.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister outline what they will be doing to limit the supply of these kinds of drugs, especially from offshore suppliers?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the member for the question. It is important that Jersey as a jurisdiction, particularly surrounded by water, is fully aware of the circumstances how these drugs can enter the island. Customs and Immigration will have officers at all the ports. They will have drug dogs at the ports, so both at St Helier Harbour as well as Jersey Airport. The challenges obviously will be the fact that we are surrounded by water. However, what can also happen is that the States of Jersey Police, along with the Customs and Immigration Department, will gather intelligence, and they will formulate packages for that intelligence, and they will stop and check people as they come through the ports in order to see if they are in possession of drugs.
Thank you. We'll move back to Mark Sylvester.
Thank you, Minister. Will are there plans to prevent those that are at risk of consuming the drugs from consuming the drugs in the first place?
Thank you for the question. I think there is a lot of work that goes on within the schools in relation to prevention and highlighting people in relation to the sort of effects that drugs can have. But it is also important as an island that we identify where potential sort of suppliers may be using young people to instigate some of their crimes for them. So I think it is an ongoing programme that we need to make sure that we continue to work with to protect all islanders from taking drugs, and as well as I said, coming into schools, and both from a medical point of view and also from the enforcement point of view, that we highlight the risks that taking drugs can have on all of the population, but particularly young people, in relation to mental health, but also other types of illnesses.
There we are. Leah, do you have a final supplementary for the Minister?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, there are other questions for the same Minister, so, and on that note, the next question is going to be asked by Alaric Corbyn, who will also ask a question for the Minister of Justice and Home Affairs. Alaric.
Thank you, sir. Further to the two recent high-profile court cases, will the Minister advise what steps, if any, the government is taking to ensure the equitable treatment of migrant workers?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the member for the question. The Government of Jersey is committed to ensuring that existing protections for migrant workers are upheld, whilst working to bring forward dedicated modern-day slavery legislation is progressed. Law enforcement agencies, including the States of Jersey Police and the Customs and Immigration Service, continue to respond, investigate and take any action necessary. Where concerns are raised or potential breaches of existing legislation are identified. A full and independent review of the current work permit policy will take place within the next 12 months to ensure that it remains fit for purpose, supports the island economy and competitiveness, contains sufficient measures to protect migrant workers, and ensures that employers are able to respond to labour market shortages and critical skills gaps by recruiting suitable, experienced and qualified overseas workers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. And so any supplementary questions for the Minister on this point? Yes.
Thank you, sir. How many incidents were reported last year?
So I don't have, unfortunately, that specific data. And it would be quite difficult because we encourage all those people, well, we encourage everyone that's experiencing difficulties within their working environment to go into what we now call as the ICC, which is a department, International Cultural Centre, which is based in Union Street on the first floor, that they go in there and raise any concerns that they have in relation to their employment or the conditions that they are living in. We also obviously have, if it's criminal type offences, then they can report them to the States of Jersey Police and also the Customs and Immigration Department. So we don't necessarily have statistics in relation to that type of information, but we would encourage anybody that is experiencing difficulties to report those matters or to go to some of the charitable organisations who also work in this field.
Thank you, Minister. Anyone apart from Matt Alaric who... Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. How will the Minister ensure to combat the growing anti-migrant sentiment within our island?
Minister?
Thank you for the question. I think it's important for all of us within the community to work with people who come to live in Jersey. It doesn't matter where they come from. It is our duty to ensure that they feel welcome. This is a lovely island, and I think we need to ensure that we support them, that they're able to feel that they're welcomed here and they're included in our community, because I think that is what we would all want if we were going overseas, because it is the right thing to do.
Alaric, did you have a final supplementary question?
No, thank you, sir.
Very well. In that case, we will move on to the third question, and I believe that's going to be asked by Felix McKinnon. Unless I've missed someone out. I've missed someone. I beg your pardon. Yes, I've missed out Alicia de Oliveira, and who's also going to ask a question for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister detail the number of underage criminal offences as a percentage of the under-18s population, and will she advise what changes have been seen in this percentage over the last 10 years? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the member for the question. I won't go again through all of the detail. The percentage of under-18s in Jersey who were recorded as suspects or offenders over the last 10 years has remained broadly stable, fluctuating between 1.2% and 1.7% of the youth population. While youth crime rose to a peak in 2021, both the number of offenders and the overall proportion have since returned closer to earlier levels. After trending downwards in 2022 and 23, the number of recorded youth crimes increased again in 24. Though the proportion of young people involved remained consistent with long-term patterns, provisional figures for 2025 indicate a similar picture, noting that some cases remain under investigation. It is important to note that most young people are law-abiding and that it is a small number of individuals that cause harm. The suspect offenders figure is a count of unique individuals based on their PURN value who are either a suspect or an offender of a criminal offence and were under 18 years of age at the time. The YP population figure was taken from population estimates, figures from the opendata.gov.link, and were filtered down to only include those aged under 18. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. So are there supplementary questions focused on this question about youth crime? Yes, I see we've got quite a few supplementaries. I'll start with Tiara, please.
Thank you, sir. What is in place to continue to reduce underage crime, and how has this been effective in recent years?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the member for the question. I think what is important is that we continue to educate young people in relation to crime. And in the last couple of years, we've reintroduced what we call building a safer community. This is a framework which aims to help Jersey safe for everyone in our community. It helps prevent and deal with community issues. It shares information on working better together, and reduces crime and reoffending, and support witnesses and victims in the community, and it helps it to thrive. It was important that this was reintroduced, and alongside it was also the reintroduction of multi-agencies going to schools and highlighting some of the pitfalls and some of the other matters which young people may get involved in.
Thank you. So there were two further questions. Yes. Is that Oscar? Yes.
Thank you, sir. Is there any evidence that incarceration in the Greenfield Centre has reduced the rate of repeat offenders? And is isolating troubled young people somewhere where they lose the access to normal schooling and a real childhood truly a solution that will benefit them in the long term, even if they don't end up reoffending?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the member for the question. I don't actually to hand have the actual statistical information in relation to the reoffending, but what I will say is that in the last couple of years, we have introduced what we call a youth justice roadmap. This will help children from a very early age, trying to so that we're therefore not punishing them in the same way. We've created this in order that we plan to support young people from the very start of their lives, as opposed to when they end up later in life finding themselves in the criminal justice system. It is not ideal in any society to have young people put into a facility and therefore restricting some of their availability to be able to go out and enjoy themselves. Sometimes it is going to be inevitable that this is going to happen in order that we can potentially break a cycle. But I think what is very important for Jersey moving forward, because this has really only just been introduced, is for the next government, which is elected, to make sure that all of those necessary ministers are working together to ensure that, as I said, we start to educate young people from a very young age. We start supporting their families, because quite often we're not supporting families early enough. So we need to do that as well. So it's not a total shift, but it's a way that we've now identified that we need to start helping people, families, a lot earlier than we do now.
Yes, Felix, supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister outline what specific leading causes there are at this point in time for underage offences, and if that has any link to the spikes in underage crime like in 2021 and 2024? Thank you, sir.
My apologies, sir. Can I just double check that the member asked said defences?
Yes, Felix, would you mind clarifying?
Pardon me, offences. Thank you.
Offences.
I think. Can I just ask for a repeat on the question, because I'm not exactly sure.
Yes, Felix, would you mind just repeating that?
Reiterating the question,
yes.
please. Sorry.
Yeah, that's no problem. Will the Minister please outline what leading causes there are at this time for underage offences, or what suspected leading causes there are and if that has any link to the kind of spikes in crime in 2021 and 2024 for underage offenders.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the member for the question. I think in relation to the spike in 2021, I think that may, sir, have been a relevant factor to following COVID. So I think that there's no statistical data that will actually clarify that, but I think it's a pretty well-known fact that following the disruption in young people's lives, a significant impact in relation to schooling and people not really being able to go out and have their lives as they should have done, I think that had an impact on probably the spike in 2021. I think, as I've said in relation to the Youth Justice Roadmap, I think moving forward, in order to reduce offending and offences with young people, is about identifying starting at the very start of their lives. So it's supporting families. It's not only about young people, it is actually about supporting families, so that, because sometimes parents can struggle as well with young children, because obviously, not everybody, it's not something that you necessarily know all about. And so I think it's important that people with young children get support within the community, and so that they can their children can develop in a certain way. And I think so that's important, that we start to look at supporting children and young families from the very start of their lives, which would hopefully have an impact on reducing crime in the long term.
Thank you, Minister. So, Alicia, a final supplementary question? Do you have a final supplementary question for the Minister? Very well. Well, that concludes the listed questions for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. So we'll move on to questions for the Connétable of St John, who's the Minister for Infrastructure. And the first question for the Connétable is from Felix McKinnon.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update on the progress of the work at Fort Regent and advise whether it is likely to be completed in the published timeframe? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Felix for his question. So in December 2025, the State Assembly approved funding for the first phase of work at Fort Regent. This work is taking place now and will make the structure safe and fit for future redevelopment. It is expected that funding for the second phase of the work, which will set out the proposed future use and the fit out of the fort, will be debated as part of the next budget in December of this year. An independent survey of more than 6,000 islanders indicated strong support for the redevelopment of Fort Regent, and we continue to engage with the community and young people in particular on the plans, and the next public event is expected to take place in April. The first planning application was submitted on time, and the 43 million funding was agreed in the 26th budget. Work continues to finalise plans to enable the second application to be submitted later this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any supplementary questions in relation to Fort Regent? No one wants to ask about Fort Regent? No? Well, in that case, Felix, do you have... Mark, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Would it be floors?
Stand up and ask him the microphone.
Would there be floors in the Fort Regent?
Do you want to ask the Minister, Mark?
Yes, you need to, you direct it through the chair, actually. So if you ask me, and then it goes to the Minister. So,
Minister, will there be floors, different floors at Fort
Regent? Will there be multiple floors in the Fort Regent? And if so, will the staircases, staircases and lifts be placed in the optimal position to decrease congestion and walking time?
Thank you very much. Mark, Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank Mark for that important question. Yes, sir, there will be multiple floors. The rotunda will have an event space at the first floor, and there will be sufficient stairs and lifts to get people up to that area to view, and they'll be able to carry on going forward towards the climbing and bouldering area. And again, there are lifts at that end of the Fort Regent to allow people to get access. The design team are working with Enable Jersey and other people who have got experience in that area to ensure that people of all abilities can enjoy the new Fort Regent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, Lexi, would you like to
Thank you,
ask
sir.
a question?
Will the Minister comment on which benefits this facility will have for island life?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Lexi for her question. So that hopefully there are going to be many benefits for island life and also for people that visit the island. What we're trying to do is achieve something which will encourage people to stay here, encourage people to return here, and encourage people to visit Jersey. We're particularly keen to hear from young people, and I've presented to some of you as part of the Youth Assembly, and I also attended the 2 school council meetings that we've had. The first one was for the exterior facilities, and the second one was for the interior facilities. We're going to have a multi-purpose event space where some 2,500 people can attend concerts, 1,200 people can watch a sporting event, for example. There's going to be a large piazza area where we hope to have the ice skating rink. We're going to have cinemas, bowling, bouldering, so there's something there for all ages. And outside there'll be a whole range of activities, many of them free to use as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Felix, did you have a final supplementary for the Minister about Fort Regent?
Thank you, sir. Yes, I do. I was just wondering, would the Minister detail what specific attractions at Fort Regent, be it internal or external, are specifically geared towards tourists and are expected to gather the most amount of funds and returns? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Felix for that question. So in terms of the business case and the returns, that work is being done, and I've made it very clear whilst I've been Minister that anything we put at Fort Regent has got to be able to sustain itself for the future. The government has got a good track record of providing new facilities, but not a great track record of looking after what they have. So it's vital that we have that. I think the multi-purpose space, I think we can envisage people coming to the island to attend concerts, the comedy gigs, a whole range of events there. I think the idea of having somewhere indoors in the poorer weather will attract families, both visitors and locals alike. And I'm looking forward to seeing Fort Regent open as soon as practically possible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. So we'll move on to the next question for the Minister, and that is to be asked by Mark Sylvester. Mark, could you please pose your question to the Minister? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Should a party political system in Jersey? Oh no, wait, no. Will the minister advise which demographic utilities which demographic utilizes public transport the most? And if such information is not collected, explain why not.
Thank you, Mark. Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Mark for that question. So public transport data breaks down demographic use by fare type. So far in 2026, the demographic which utilises public transport the most are those travellers who have purchased adult fares, assumed to be generally individuals aged between 19 and 64 years of age, making up 52% of all journeys. This is followed by under 19-year-olds at 31% and over 64-year-olds at 17%. As passengers are not asked their age when boarding a bus, it is not straightforward to disaggregate the information into smaller groupings. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. So are there any supplementary questions in relation to public transport? Yes. So Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state, are there any plans to tax petrol or diesel vehicles more heavily to subside greener transport such as buses, bicycles and electric vehicles? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lewis. Minister.
Thank you, sir. The taxing of vehicles doesn't sit under the Minister for Infrastructure, but the Minister for Treasury and Resources. And I think we're going to have to think seriously about how we replace lost revenue from the decrease in the amount of fuel used in conventional motors. And that work is underway, and the next government will have that challenge ahead of them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, Eve, thank you.
Thank you, sir. If the new restrictions placed on those with free bus passes, as recently proposed, could this push people away from public transport and back into their cars, especially in a time where fuel prices are volatile?
Thank you, Eve. Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Eve for the question. Although there aren't any proposals to change the way people access buses at the moment, I was asked at a recent scrutiny hearing why bus fares had gone up, and I explained that 44% of bus users do so as a concession, and in order not to impact on those concession fares, we've had to put the price of bus fares up. I'm really keen for young people to use the bus. I used to use the bus to go to school. In fact, I used to get 2 buses from near the airport to town and one up to St Saviour's when I was at primary school. I'm still a bus user today, many, many years later. And I use the bus regularly. And the key ways to get people to use buses is to ensure the cost, that they're convenient and that they're comfortable. And Liberty Bus have done a great job in improving their fleet. I believe the cost is effective, and we're actively encouraging people to shift from parking their car in town, which is expensive, to using the bus. And I think they're convenient in terms of the amount of buses on many routes are very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. So, Mark Sylvester, do you have a final supplementary question for the Minister in relation to public transport? You don't have to ask one, but if you do you have one? No. Well, we'll move on then. So the next question for the Minister for Infrastructure is from Peter Luce. So, Peter.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, he has given to controls that could be put in place to deter high traffic levels around condensed areas of infrastructure, such as schools? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank Pete for his question. Managing traffic around schools remains a significant challenge, largely because many schools sit on our main transport corridors where school travel coincides with peak commuter demand. This creates concentrated congestion on roads that are already constrained and cannot easily be widened. The most effective way to reduce this pressure is to reduce the number of vehicles making short school journeys. Encouraging active travel through improved walking and cycling routes remains the most sustainable long-term solution. We continue to improve crossings, footpaths and shared routes to help families choose alternatives to the car. Recent measures have been taken at St Luke's, Trinity and St Saviour's primary schools, as well as in the wider Bagatelle and College Hill area. And these include a school street at St Luke's, traffic calming measures, new crossings and junction upgrades to support active travel. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Minister. Any supplementaries? Tiara. There's quite a few supplementaries, so Tiara's first.
Thank you, sir. With some students reporting full school buses, is the school bus service adequately meeting needs? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm aware that Liberty Bus have to change the type of bus on some routes to cope with the additional usage. And I'm also aware that we're at, I think it's La Rocchia School, where people who want to get off at the first bus stop are encouraged to walk rather than to get that bus. But if there are issues, I'd be happy to look into any specific one that the member may have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Sorry, I didn't catch. Yes.
Sorry,
so
sir, my question's already been answered.
Tom, sorry?
My question's already been answered. Sir.
Oh, right. Very well. There were some more supplementary questions, I think. Anyone? No? Very well, then. So we'll move back to Peter. Peter, do you have a final supplementary question?
Thank you, sir. I do. The Minister detailed that he feels that the roads cannot be easily widened and the roads are very constrained. Has there been any action or inquiry into whether it would be viable to widen the roads or make any other measures to make travel easier and less congested?
Thank you, sir, and I thank Pete for the question. Sir, there's lots of work and effort that goes in place for any changes to the road network. I should say that Leylon School has got a fantastic cycle bus, and I'm delighted that Grooville School are also trialling a cycle bus as we speak. I think we're hopeful to do some work on Bagatelle Road. We're going to put a new footpath opposite the primary school, which will widen the road, but that is subject to funding. And often it's a case of getting the funding, getting the technical requirements together. So where we can, we will. But I think our priority is to try and encourage people to car share, to catch the bus, or to use active travel. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much, Minister. So that was the final supplementary. So we'll move on next to questions for Deputy Tom Binet, who's the Minister for Health. And I invite Charlie Baker, Charlie Baker, to ask the first question of the Minister for Health. Charlie.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state the total spend to date on the new hospital facility at Overdale and advise what has been achieved with the spend?
Minister.
So it's an interesting question. I suspect the new hospital saga has been going on since before many of our new members were born. But I'm sure they're well familiar with what's been going on. What I have included in the numbers is the spend for the last two projects, because they're pretty closely interlinked, given that they occupy the same site areas as with one another as they would have done otherwise. And the total spend is 142 million. For that, we've achieved the purchase of a number of buildings at Overdale, several buildings in Kensington Place and a building site in Kensington Place, a huge amount of architectural plans and the obtaining of planning permission, a major investment in the Enid Kenno Health and Wellbeing Centre. I think that runs to the tune of about 15 million. Some refurbishment work at St Ewald's Rehabilitation Centre, some money spent on relocating services for the crematorium, the complete demolition of Overdale, a lot of site preparation work up at Overdale as well, and cut and fill earthworks. So that's the extent of the works achieved for that money. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. So are there supplementary questions in relation to the new hospital project? Any supplementaries? Charlie.
With these properties purchased, are they being put to use? And if not, when will they be?
The vast majority of them, I'm afraid, have been demolished. I think the only properties that are left standing are two small shops on the corner of Kensington Place, and they're probably due for demolition. So I'm afraid that's very little there left to be utilised, I'm afraid.
An easy answer, or succinct answer. Any further supplementary questions in relation to the new hospital project? Oh, sorry, have I missed someone? No, right. Oh, sorry, where's that? Oh, Ashley, yes, I bet. Ashley, please.
Could the Minister advise on what the timeline is looking like for the new hospital and when it's supposed to be finished?
$1 million question, Minister.
It is. I wish that hadn't been asked of me, sir. I'm hoping about 4 years from now, give or take.
Thank you,
That's
Minister.
probably said enough.
Yes. Any final supplementaries on the new hospital? No? Ah, right. So Eve.
Thank you, sir. Has any further consideration been given to key access routes to the new hospital?
Minister.
A great deal of work has been done in terms of access routes over the course of the whole period of time. One of the benefits of breaking the hospital down into two parts, having the acute at the top of Overdale and the ambulatory in Kensington Place, is that the extent of the traffic now going to Overdale will be greatly decreased. And I think that probably saves a number of millions of pounds in terms of not having had to build a sort of a larger road to access. So we can get access to the acute hospital because there isn't that much traffic involved with the existing road network, with a few modifications.
Thank you, Minister. I'll allow one final supplementary on the new hospital, and that is from Felix. Felix.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister outline whether there is any specific relation between the construction at Overdale and the construction, or modification, I should say, of the fort, and if the two projects could have any hindrances to one another in terms of labour availability and supplies. Thank you, sir.
That's another very interesting question, sir. I'm hopeful that the two things won't interfere with each other. The work with the potential contractor at the moment is taking place. It's going to involve bringing quite a lot of people to the island to work on the hospital site. So I'm quite hopeful that the two things can coexist reasonably comfortably.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next question for the Minister for Health, and that is to be asked by Alana Royston. Alana.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister detail the key issues facing healthcare on the island, apart from the new healthcare facility? And for each key issue, will he explain how these are being addressed?
Thank you, Alana. Minister.
I'm tempted to answer that by saying, how long have you got?
Well, you've got quite a long answer here written, but perhaps you could summarise it, Minister.
I'll go through it as best I can, and I'll try and answer them. I know I'm supposed to be limited to 70 words, but I'll never get away with that. So, the list of things that we're facing, and there are more, but these are the main things. Ageing demographic. I think I think I'm correct in saying that in the coming years we've got an 8% annual increase in the amount of people reaching pensionable age, and as everybody knows, you need a lot more treatment when you get to pensionable age. The annual increase in treatments available. Science keeps delivering more and more better treatments, but they're all expensive, and everybody wants every new treatment as it comes out, and you've got to add those treatments to the treatments that are already being delivered. Yeah, the rising cost of healthcare. Sadly, healthcare costs are going up quicker than the standard rate of inflation. Some of the problems we faced as a standalone thing in Jersey 2 years ago, but there was a poor culture, and I think that was very evident. That's now changing. A lack of joined-up activity between the various health sectors. We've got private GPs, we've got state-delivered healthcare, and we've got charities delivering a certain amount of healthcare as well. Another major problem that we identified was digital connectivity between all of the various sectors in health. We had an international rating about 15 months ago, and we came out at, on a scale of 1 to 7, we came out at 0. So that was a very low starting point. And another problem we've got is a lack of historical investment in preventative healthcare measures. Shall I then tackle...
Shall we stop there, Minister? I think you've gone over 70 words,
fine.
but there will be supplementaries, I'm sure. So any supplementaries for the Minister in relation to the key issues facing healthcare in the island? Penelope.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister outline what the main obstacles are to delivering the healthcare system that they wish to see for Jersey?
To be fair, sir, I think I've probably, that list that I've just delivered probably, I hope, covers that. There are a few more relatively minor things.
Would you mind reiterating the list in very summary form?
Yeah, in summary, ageing demographic, rising cost of healthcare, new treatments, poor culture, and lack of joined-up activity, both human and digital.
Thank you. Any supplementaries for the Minister? Eve.
Thank you, sir. With Brexit complicating EU recruitment of doctors and other healthcare professionals, what is Jersey's unique proposition to get them over on our island?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I think this gives me a chance to talk about some of the things that we're doing, which will invariably help to attract people. One is a change of culture. I think there has been a significant change of culture. The organisation is much happier than it was. We've got an increase in the base budget of 12 million a year, which is significant. That stops them having to deal with constantly being accused of overspending. It gives them a chance to have a balanced budget. We've secured an extra 8 million for digital work this year, and hopefully for the next 5 years, and another 4 million a year for 5 years for health prevention. And I think when the word gets out that all of this is happening, we've also created an integrated health board which brings all the partners together. That's hopefully due to meet for the first time in about a month's time. And all of these things, I think, will go a long way towards making Jersey an attractive place. The goal over the next 4 years is, whilst we're building the hospital, is to ensure that the health service when it comes to being moved into the hospital is that the equivalent quality to the hospital building itself. Otherwise, there's no point in building a new hospital. So that's the goal, and I think everybody in the health in the health service actually shares that goal. And I think that would be spread eventually, and people will be attracted to that, hopefully.
Lewis, I saw that you had your light on. Did you have a supplementary?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain if the 20-year forecast was to change and possible costs of healthcare increases dramatically, would anything be put in place to cover for such costs? Thank you, sir.
That's another interesting quality question. So there is work being undertaken at the moment to define what the likely costs are for the next 20 years, so that whoever's doing this job in the next government then has to face the very difficult job of defining how we're going to arrange health funding in the future. And that's going to require us talking to the public about the extent of the healthcare service that they want and how much they're prepared to pay for it. And it's going to be a difficult task. But I think we have to face the fact that healthcare costs are going up above inflation, and we have to find a way of dealing with that.
Thank you, Minister. So, Alana, a final supplementary?
Yes, sir, thank you. I was just wondering, are there any plans to hire more specialists in certain fields, like dermatology, for example?
Minister.
Yeah, there's been, over the course of the last couple of years, there's been a lot of work to try and move away from having temporary clinicians to having full-time people that are committed to the island. And we are, within the constraints of the budget that we've got, we are looking to try and get more clinicians, because things are getting more and more specialised, and it's increasingly difficult to get people with high degrees of specialisation to come to an island with only 100,000 people, because they don't quite get the scope of work that they need. So those things are difficult. So what we have done is we're starting to make arrangements with 1 or 2 key centres in the UK. So we've got visiting professionals coming over in addition to the ones that we've got, to make sure that we've got full cover. But that avoids us having to have people unnecessarily on full-time cover.
Thank you, Minister. So the last question for the Minister for Health is to be asked by Megan Thorne. So, Megan.
Yes, thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether any consideration has been given to the creation of internships to be available during the school summer holidays for A-level students who are seeking to follow a medical career?
Thank you, Megan. So, Minister.
So, since 2022, our public service internship programme has offered paid 6-week summer placements for students across a range of government departments, and that includes healthcare. This summer, Health and Care expects to host around 11 interns across pharmacy, adult social care, patient access, the heart team, and the ambulance service.
Thank you. Any supplementary questions? Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Is there usually more demand than supply for these internships? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
To the best of my knowledge, we've been able to accommodate everybody that's wanted to do that. I stand to be corrected, but my understanding is that everybody's been accommodated thus far. So.
Yes, Lexi.
Thank you, sir. How will the Minister ensure that healthcare workers in Jersey receive adequate mental health support?
Another topical question. We're launching a new strategy document later this week for mental health, sir. And there's been a big overview. I think a lot of progress has been made over the past 2 years, but I think it's clear that there's a lot more progress that needs to be made. And we're looking to put some further investment into mental health as well, sir.
Thank you, Minister. I'll move to a final supplementary then. Megan, would you wish to ask a final supplementary?
No, thank you, sir.
Very well. Well, that concludes questions for the Minister for Health. So we will now move on to questions for the Chief Minister. So would anyone like to ask the first question of the Chief Minister? Well, lots of lights on. Chief Minister will be glad to see. I think the first light that went on was from Penelope. So, Penelope.
Thank you, sir. As Jersey's voting age is 16, are there any plans to make political education compulsory in schools?
Chief Minister.
Thank you. There are currently no plans to make political education compulsory in schools, although there is a strong recognition by the Assembly that education education about our unique system will both inform students and also hope to lead to better integration with the voting system. I think members will know the number of young people that vote is very low. I think the latest figures is that only 17% of people aged between 16 and 30 turn out at the elections, and I think one of the solutions to that is providing better education and informing young people about the system.
Thank you, Chief Minister. So I'm afraid I didn't catch. Oh, right. Is that Maya? Yes, Maya. Thank you.
What is the immigration process in Jersey and how does it differ from the UK and EU?
Chief Minister.
Now, immigration is very similar in many areas because we are part of the Common Travel Area. So we work closely with the United Kingdom. We have open borders to the United Kingdom. So of course we have to make sure our own borders are properly policed. We have our own laws relating to how we manage our immigration in relation to housing, how we issue work permits and how we apply those to society and the economy.
Thank you, Chief Ministers. Yes, now lots of lights still, so I think Lewis, I saw your light next. Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state if there's any plans to align our justice system and laws more closely with the UK in the future? Thank you, sir.
No, there aren't, sir, although we do have similar laws. They're not, in certain areas, they're not too different. But I'm a supporter of our unique independent situation. We've been making our own laws for over 800 years, since 1204. And I think we should never lose control over that. We don't want to start setting precedents by emulating too much UK law. But we do work closely together when we're constructing laws. There's a lot of expertise that works both ways. But members might be interested to know that many UK politicians, when they come to Jersey, they much prefer our system to theirs. So maybe they can learn something from us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief Minister. I saw Melissa Rodriguez. You had your light on. Melissa.
Thank you, sir. How many islanders are currently unemployed and what support is available for those without an income?
Chief Minister.
I think currently seeking work numbers are in the region of 700, but I'd like to check that to give an accurate figure. We have a broad range of income support measures which are available to the less well-off in society and those people who are unable to find or hold permanent employment. So we aim to ensure that no member of society is left behind because they are struggling with certain aspects of community or societal life. The raft of income support measures is large, and I would be happy to provide a more detailed list to the member should she wish it.
Thank you, Minister. Right, we have lots of questions. Alicia.
Thank you, sir. If we get asylum seekers, what protocols are in place to assess their claim?
Chief Minister.
Well, so we would, I don't know the technical details, if I'm honest, about that. We don't get too many asylum seekers. I can't actually remember. Perhaps the Deputy Bailiff would remember. Am I allowed to deflect a question to the chair?
Thankfully.
It was worth a try. So I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. We don't get many asylum seekers, but if we did get them, they would be dealt with in accordance with the appropriate law, treated fairly, and we've made sure their claims are listened to carefully.
Thank you. Yes. Now, Leah. Yes, Leah.
Thank you, sir. Are any plans in place to make narrow pavements more accessible for people with disabilities or prams?
If the member could just repeat the question.
Yes, would you mind just repeating the question, please, Leah?
Are any plans in place to make narrow pavements more accessible for people with disabilities or prams?
Narrow pavements. Chief Minister.
That's something we've talked about for some time, but we often do that and do little about it. There are no firm plans in place for that, although the new Investing in Jersey programme, which seeks to ring-fence funding for investment in our infrastructure, will undertake to look at that. I know there is a lot more understanding there of the importance of mobility and ensuring that the public, all members of the public, can get around properly. So that whilst there are no firm plans, that's something that I think is moving its way up the agenda very quickly.
Chief Minister. Right. Who hasn't asked a question before? So, Thomas, I think you.
How has the move from Condor to DFDS impacted tourism in the island so far in 2025?
Thank you, Thomas.
I think it impacted tourism in DFDS's first year of operation last year because of the timings around the tender process. DFDS stepped in at relatively short notice, and it took them more time to settle in, get the timetable sorted out, the scheduling sorted out, and of course, a big aspect of the operation of our shipping company is the movement of freight. Over 95% of what we consume is imported by sea. Having said that, I think the worst of it is over. They are beginning to get into their stride. I think many islanders and many members of the Assembly have been slightly disappointed at the time it's taken, but recognise that DFDS are doing everything they can to ensure we get a really good service.
Thank you, Chief Minister. So, Megan Thorns, the next questioner. Megan.
Thank you, sir. Are there any plans to spend some of our reserves whilst we are in this cost of living crisis?
Chief Minister.
Well, I think we can help to address cost of living pressures on islanders without having to go to the reserves at this stage by diverting and prioritising money from revenues we receive on an annual basis. We're currently considering the latest impact of the war in the Middle East and how that's impacting on local cost of living pressures, specifically in relation to oil and heating oil specifically, which has seen an increase of up to 75% so far. But the answer to the question, we're not planning, we don't need to use reserves as yet because we will fund any support from revenue.
Chief Minister. Yes, lots of lights. I think, Jack, I don't think you've asked a supplementary before or a question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Given the current climate change crisis, what has limited Jersey's ability to develop its own renewable energy?
Chief Minister.
I think probably technology. I think Jersey's very keen. We have a carbon neutral roadmap, we have targets as to how we want to get there, but as a small jurisdiction, we rely on technology developing around the world, and then we will buy into that. I think ideally Jersey would want to harness its tidal energy that's more reliant and more reliable than most other types of renewables that are available. Wind technology around wind farms is much more advanced than harnessing tidal energy, but of course there's a huge environmental impact on wind farms. I'm not a big fan of them, but I'm a big fan of renewable energy. I hope that's answered the question.
Thank you, Chief Minister. So, Marlon, I saw you had your light on. Question for the Chief Minister.
What practical and financial support is already in place for new parents in Jersey?
For new parents. Right. Chief Minister.
There is maternity support, and there are other targeted areas of support depending on the household and independent income. So it's dependent on that. So there's without knowing a specific case, for example, it would be difficult to list what's available, but I can say there is good support for new parents in Jersey.
Thank you. Right.
Time up?
No, I'm told you've got another 10 minutes, Chief Minister. Or perhaps 8 minutes. So I think, Alana, you've got a question for the Chief Minister, yes.
Why are the waiting lists for appointments at the hospital so long, and what policies are in place to reduce it?
Chief Minister.
That's clearly a question for the Health Minister.
Well, she didn't get the opportunity to ask the Minister of Health, so I'm afraid, Chief Minister, you're going to have to attempt that one.
I think first it's important to say that wait lists for the most serious illnesses, for example, cancer. I noticed the wait lists, 95% of cases are dealt with within 31 days. I think treatment starts, the health minister. So the prioritisation we have is focused on the most serious illnesses. And I think there are a raft of reasons why waiting lists in some areas have reduced, but in other areas, usually the non-essential surgeries are increasing, and that's to do with resources. And I think the availability of specialist staff, but I do think once the new facilities are in place, we're going to see a vast improvement. Now, I know that's some time down the road, but significant progress has been made. We've increased frontline hospital staff by, I think, over 200, maybe more than that in the last year and a half under the work carried out by the current health minister. So we're putting more resources into it. The skills gap that we've seen post-Brexit, when we've been having to import specialist staff from around the world, is starting to settle down a bit. So I remain optimistic that we will continue to make good progress, although I would say that some waiting lists are still far longer than they should be, and still far longer than both myself and the Health Minister would like.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Now, Lexi, you've got a question for the Chief.
Thank you, sir. What plans are in place to ensure disabled children have the same opportunities as their non-disabled counterparts?
Chief Minister.
As I said before, it's a key priority of this government, and I believe the Assembly, to make sure our society is wholly inclusive. And so we deal with that in a number of ways. I think there's planning laws, for example, will ensure now that public areas and spaces are built with that in mind to ensure we have total access. We referred to a question before about broadening pavements. Whilst there is no firm, in relation to that article, firm policy in place, you'll find out that the vast majority of public works carried out is done so with that in mind.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Yes, Lewis. Oh, sorry, no, I beg your pardon. Sorry, I can't see your name card, I'm afraid. It's Alaric, yes, Alaric.
What is the island doing to incentivise individuals to go green?
Chief Minister.
There were a number of initiatives, largely financial incentives, actually, that the Environmental Minister's been leading on in relation to the acquisition of new vehicles, for example. That's something that's been very successful. E-bikes have been heavily subsidised. Of course, we have, again, I refer to an answer I gave previously in relation to we consume the vast majority of what we consume imported, including cars and motorbikes and so forth. So even if we wanted to, we can't really move ahead of the markets and how products are manufactured. So it is challenging. We often find ourselves in a position where we would like to move faster, but we're restricted by global markets from where we draw our products. For example, there's no point us banning cars that run off fossil fuels in 2030 if we can't get access to the products we need to replace them.
Yes, I think there's time for perhaps one or two more questions for the Chief Minister. So, Oscar, your light came on first.
Thank you, sir.
Followed by Oliver, I think.
Chief Minister, how is Jersey preparing for increasing global instability, whether that's through conflict, climate change, or economic migration? And what impact does this have on Jersey and Jersey's long term?
Chief Minister.
Well, as the deputies asked a poignant question, we live in what we can probably class as an unstable geopolitical situation. We have challenges around the world. And while we're not directly involved, we tend to feel the repercussions of those fairly keenly. For example, the war in Ukraine led to a huge increase in the global cost of commodities. That actions like that find themselves quickly onto the shelves of our supermarkets and the forecourt of our garage. We have an emergencies council. We have a team that monitor global situations. We meet regularly. We work on scenarios and under different circumstances. We work closely with the UK and other relevant countries, where we assess all sorts of challenges that may arise into the future. But we are very lucky insofar as we enjoy a stable economy. Although we are susceptible to inflation fairly quickly from actions around the world, we tend to not suffer from disruptions to supply chains, and that's the case currently now with the current troubles in the Middle East.
Thank you, Chief Minister. So, Oliver, you have a question for the
Thank you,
Chief Minister.
sir. Due to this unstable geopolitical climate, do you believe that the UK and Jersey should deepen our relationship with the European Union?
Chief Minister.
I was always disappointed that Jersey had to leave the European Union under the Brexit rules. Islanders didn't get a chance to vote on it. I think if Islanders had have voted, we would have voted quite strongly, I believe, to stay in. We had a very good arrangement under the previous agreement, and I think it's caused tremendous amount of disruption to our community and the way we carry things out. So yes, we are firm supporters of the EU-UK reset plans that are happening at the moment. We're working closely with the UK on that, and I would wholeheartedly support much closer collaboration.
I'm going to allow one final supplementary, final question for the Chief Minister. We've got time. Yes, Mark.
Should a thank you, sir. Should a party political system in Jersey be given more consideration to boost political engagement?
Thank you, Mark. Chief Minister.
Well, so effectively, we are a non-partisan political system, although we do have, of course, Reform Jersey. They think they've probably been the most successful party in the history of politics, and we have Deputy Bailiff up in the Assembly. And I think engagement, it's certainly helped engagement from a sector of the community who are tended towards supporting the Reform Party manifesto. I think it's important that the government is representative of this Assembly, and I think it's important this Assembly is representative of the way our community is made up. And that's why in this government, Reform Jersey and one or two other parties have had a seat at the government table. And I think it's worked incredibly well. I think we've achieved a lot because of it. And I think all you have to do is count up the amount of legislation that is good legislation that we've been waiting years for. For example, violence against women and girls legislation, to name but one of the raft of legislation we brought through because this government has been working in a more collegiate way. Now, I'm under no illusion that Deputy Mezak's not going to go into bat in the election and you know, support his party manifesto, which is what politics is all about. So to answer your question, I think in some instances, party politics can certainly boost engagement with politics. But if the people of Jersey wanted a four-party political system, we would have it. And we don't have it at the moment because I think being a strongly independent island, we like independent politics. But I can feel that starting to change. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief Minister.
So before I sit down, can I just say that must be a world record for questions without notice. I lost count after about 30. But can I thank members for being here and contributing to this. And when I hear that young people aren't engaged with politics, I feel reassured and buoyed by not only the fact that you're all here, but the incredible high level of questions you ask, which are of a far better quality than some of those we get on a Tuesday. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Chief Minister. Well, as the Chief Minister has just said, that brings question time to an end. I agree with the Chief Minister that there have been some absolutely excellent questions that have been asked today. So you've stamped your feet in the correct way. But could I ask or invite you to stamp your feet again for the Chief Minister and the three ministers who've attended today, because it's a very busy time for ministers. It always is, but I'd like it if you could thank them for coming today and answering all your questions. So thank you. And if you have feedback or comments that you would like the ministers to hear, that perhaps are prompted by the answers to the questions that they've just given, I'm sure that they will be very willing to receive those and answer them. So if you have any questions that you haven't been able to ask, then I would invite you to put those in writing and convey those to the ministers. But thank you all, and that will conclude our question time. I believe we're taking a break now, is that right? Yes. So we're going to take a short break for about 10 minutes, yes. So we'll take a break for 10 minutes, and so we're adjourned until just after 2 o'clock. Thank you. Please sit down. So we move to public business. We have two propositions, and the first proposition is from Charlie Baker, and I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The Jersey Youth Assembly is asked to decide whether it is of opinion that vapes should be available by prescription only for those seeking to quit smoking cigarettes.
Charlie, I invite you to propose the proposition.
In 2003, Hong Lik designed the first electronic cigarette. Motivated by his father's smoking-caused sickness, he sought an alternative, a medical technology designed to help people quit. But today we have to ask, what are they now? Are they medical? Do they help people quit when they're being used by 14-year-olds who have never touched a cigarette? What was once an innovation to health has become something very different, an under-researched and over-commercialized gateway to nicotine addiction, perhaps the most addictive drug, with the National Institute of Health showing at the highest rate of progression from initial use to dependence, more than the dependence rate of cocaine and alcohol combined. My proposal is simple. Vapes should be prescription-only products, not banned, just controlled. We can reclaim them as a clinical method to help people quit, not a consumer product for a new generation. We already know that smoking's bad. Each year, 8 million deaths are directly linked to tobacco use. Smokers dying on average 10 years younger than non-smokers, and smokers having 15 to 30 times more likely to develop lung cancer. These sicknesses are not just personal issues. They take time and money from government services that are already struggling. Think about how much better our society could be if our tax money could go into schools and our infrastructure instead of treating people with preventable illness. Vapes are the new generation of smoking, so by controlling them with prescriptions, we remove them as a source of primary addiction, relieving stress on healthcare in the future. But why vapes? Why a prescription in place of a ban? For democracies like our own to function, we need freedom, and I believe an outright ban violates this necessity. But with the state's vapor in today, many new smokers, like teens, encounter nicotine not through old-fashioned cigarettes, but through brightly coloured vapes. By making vapes prescription only, we respect people's autonomy. They can still choose to smoke cigarettes or get a prescription for vapes. But we remove vapes as a commercialised gateway into nicotine addiction, which brings me to my next point. If we make vapes prescriptions and take them off shelves, we can help people quit effectively. Approximately 70% of smokers want to quit nicotine. Implementing prescriptions will place smokers closer to specialists who can alleviate withdrawal symptoms and help the brain to adapt to the absence of nicotine. How many of you know what bupropion and varenicline are? They're the current prescriptions for smokers, and I'm willing to guess that most of you have never heard of them. Vapes are popular, and we can bring that popularity closer to healthcare. A large public movement like this will bring the general public into the unknown systems that are already functional. Prescriptions are an elegant solution. Others, such as an increased tax, would just give smokers more financial burden. And a complete ban would remove freedom for consumers, and a free market ignores public health. A prescription is in the Goldilocks zone. enough so that people can choose how to live their life, offering an option to quit and maiming the uptake of nicotine in the youth. All while bringing smoking closer to healthcare systems already in place, educating smokers, streamlining their health recovery, later down the line preventing illnesses, relieving tension in healthcare systems and saving money. And how do we do all this? Merely using vapes for their original intended purpose. We have a simple and effective opportunity to improve public health. It would be a mistake to ignore it.
Thank you, Charlie. Is the proposition seconded? We can't debate it unless it's seconded. So is the proposition seconded? Any of you can second it. Thank you, Felix. The proposition is seconded. So does any member wish to speak on the proposition? So Oscar, I saw your light first.
Thank you, sir. Vaping was meant to be a controlled tool to help smokers quit. But by keeping it as a retail product, we have handed it over to corporations to market, brand and profit from addiction itself. Disposable vapes are designed for convenience, flavour and repeated use, not recovery. That allows companies to actively capitalise on nicotine dependency, especially among young people. And biologically, this is not harmless either. High nicotine concentrations, rapid delivery and unknown long-term chemical exposure mean that in their current disposable form, vapes can entrench addiction even more effectively than traditional cigarettes. This is not harm reduction, it is harm redistribution driven by profit. Restricting vapes to prescription use takes them out of the hands of marketers and puts them back where they belong, in the hands of healthcare professionals. That is how we protect public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Lexi.
Thank you, sir. Making vapes prescription only in Jersey may sound like a solution, but it will not stop people vaping. It will simply alter the safety and legitimacy of where people can obtain them. I would also like to add that I do believe vaping has become far too normalised and commercialised in society and does need some form of regulation. However, I do not feel this restriction will combat this, while still maintaining the necessary support for those battling addiction. An answer must be found, fellow members of the Jersey Youth Assembly, but this is not it. We have decades of evidence from failed drug policy behind us to support this. When governments restrict access to a substance people already use and are addicted to, this demand does not suddenly disappear just because it is harder or illegal to obtain. Instead, supply moves underground. This results in an unregulated black market where products are more dangerous, with no quality controls, and in fact, leaves young people more open to significantly more harm. If vapes require a doctor's prescription, many adults who currently buy them legally will turn to informal or illegal sellers. Those sellers will not ask for ID or any other form of identification, and they will certainly not care about protecting teenagers struggling with vape addiction. This proposition itself is quite ironic, as it is designed to protect young people from vaping. However, if voted in favour, would make the solution undeniably worse by pushing vaping into the same unregulated spaces as other illegal substances. Effective policy on vapes and vaping should be focused on regulation, age enforcement and product safety, not prohibition by some other name. If we genuinely care about protecting young people, we should keep vaping in a controlled and legal market where standards, oversight and accountability exist, and where there is open and available support for those struggling with vape addiction. Because when history shows us anything, it's when access disappears, the black market appears, and young people always pay the ultimate price. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Lexi. The next member to speak is Felix.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to address that, firstly, there is accountability in legal vapes, and I am inclined to agree with that. However, there's also figures like, according to the NHS website, almost 2/3 of people who are using vapes, more specifically vaping nicotine, are people who have quit smoking. As well as this, the NHS has on their website said that while nicotine vaping is not risk-free, it is still factually better than smoking. Equally, nicotine on its own, while being a highly addictive drug, and it does have risks, it is not on its own a toxic material that contains toxic chemicals, like in cigarettes, such as tobacco. Equally, the NHS has said in the past that nicotine vapes are one of the most effective stop smoking aids, and they are implemented across the country. Factually, in my opinion, these have to be the best thing that we can do, and imposing them for people who are trying to quit smoking is a no-brainer. Equally, in the public market, disposable vapes are an issue, and therefore, by not letting them be able to be sold anymore, it means that teenagers who are struggling with nicotine addictions will instead have to turn to alternatives, like potentially more dangerous ones. However, if the government is able to clearly communicate with their demographics, they'll be able to work with nicotine patches and other suitable, sustainable, well, not sustainable, but other more healthy ways of dissipating their habits. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. The next member to speak is Travis Durkin. Travis.
Thank you. Members of the Assembly, today I am not just a delegate, I'm a shield, I'm a fire. I'm the voice of every mother crying in her kitchen, St. Helier, every father pacing the floor in St. Open, every teenager whose future is being sold to the highest bidder for 30 pieces of silver. They talk about consumer choice, and they talk about market freedom. I ask you, where is the freedom in a chemical change? Where is the choice for the quarter of our girls who wake up trembling for a fix that they were tricked into wanting? While this government sat in their air-conditioned offices, a foreign invasion landed onto our shores. Not soldiers, not bombs, neoplastic, candy-flavoured poisoned. They came for our kids, they studied their brains, they turned Jersey's finest into addicts. And the government, they did nothing. They let millionaires harvest our children's health to buy yachts. They let millions of disposable vapes rot in our soil, poison our seas, and trash our streets. Our island became their leisure, and our children became their profit. The lobbyists are whispering, aren't they? Regulations are bad, but I have news for you. Suits. The sellers, the billionaires, your party's over. The people have arrived. We are drawing a line in the sand that no corporate boat will cross again. This is not a party tweak. This is total medical reclaimed sovereignty. No more candy traps in our corner stores. No more CEOs hunting our children for support. Prescription-only access is the people's hammer. It puts power back where it belongs, in the hands of the doctors who actually care if you live or die. I am your shield, I am your voice. If this government is too weak to protect Jersey's family, step aside. I stand for the 12-year-old student who lost their spark. I stand for the parents ignored for too long. I am the wall that big tobacco will crash into. They will break no one, not on my watch. I will not be silenced. I will not be brought. I will never stop until every child in Jersey breathes air not taxed by a predator. To the youth of Jersey, the era of victims is over. The era of the people begins now. To the government, you have one chance. Stand with families, stand with doctors, stand with me, or be swept away by a tidal generation that had enough. We are reclaiming our health, we are reclaiming our island, we are reclaiming our lives. They have money, we have the soul. prescriptions over profits, Jersey over greed, vote for the people, vote for the future. And before I end the speech, I would like to bring in a point. Some claim that banning vapes will bring a black market. Now, I have actually had the opportunity to speak with the former Deputy Chief Minister and the former Deputy Minister of Health. And they both said to me that there was almost a 0% chance of black market happening for the following reasons. Economically, the feasibility depends on the expected profits, risk of enforcement, demand elasticity, and transaction costs. Disposable vapes have low value density and high bulk, reducing profit margin for legal suppliers. Youth demand is highly elastic, so a small increase in cost or effort sharply reduces consumption. Legal distribution imposes search costs, risks, premiums, and coordination costs per limiting scale. The legal market currently amplifies demand through visibility, normalization, and convenience. Removing that infrastructure reduces consumption and social exposure more than any limited illicit trade could restore. Geography and centralized control in Jersey further constrain supply chains from a welfare perspective. Net harm declines under regulation. Even if minor legal activity persists, economics predict black market risk is negligible relative to the reduction in addiction and social costs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Travis. The next member whose light I saw to speak was Ashley Good. Ashley.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I feel it's fundamentally inconsistent to introduce a prescription-only vape. While the long-term effects of vaping are still being studied, cigarettes, a more harmful legal product, remain widely available. The effects Charlie described very well during his speech. Yet we are proposing to restrict vapes completely for public use, which are widely considered a less harmful alternative. This sends a contradictory message. This inconsistency becomes even clearer when we consider the states of Jersey are exploring the decriminalisation of cannabis, a decision debated in 2024 that only narrowly failed by just one vote. The issue is expected to return after the June 2026 election. This suggests that Jersey is moving towards a more liberal and permissive approach to certain substance use. Yet at the same time, we are proposing stricter regulation on vaping. There is also the broader issue of personal autonomy. Adults should have the right to make informed decisions about their own health, particularly when vaping is often used as a tool to quit smoking. If vapes are only for prescription, you could only get them by first having a smoking addiction. Therefore, the notion prescription vapes would keep autonomy is just incorrect. By over-regulating, we risk removing a valuable harm reduction pathway and replacing it with more dangerous alternatives. This is because people do not simply stop addictive behaviours when access is reduced. They adapt. If vapes become impossible to obtain without a prescription, many users may turn back to cigarettes or take up smoking cigarettes for the first time, which are significantly more harmful. In an attempt to reduce harm, we actually increase it. It's important that as the Youth Assembly, we recognise this decision would not only affect the youth, but adults too. However, there is a more effective alternative. Rather than pushing vapes into a prescription-only system, we should regulate them more strictly within the legal market. By still allowing vapes to be available on prescription for smokers looking to quit, minimising the costs for them, alongside increasing taxes, restricting marketing, and applying the same public use rules as cigarettes to vapes available to the public to purchase, that would reduce youth access while maintaining safer, regulated products for adults. Crucially, this approach also strengthens enforcement. If vapes remain legal but tightly controlled, those who sell illegal or unregulated products can face clearer and more severe penalties. In other words, we don't eliminate the market, we make the safe market stronger and the dangerous one easier to target. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. So the next member whose light I saw is Alicia de Oliveira.
Thank you, sir. As previously mentioned by my fellow members, Vaping was originally introduced as a harm reduction tool intended to help adult smokers quit traditional cigarettes. However, its use has expanded far beyond that purpose, particularly among young people. The question we have before us today is whether these products should remain widely available or whether they should return to being a controlled aid for smoking cessation. I stand in support of the proposition. Firstly, we must consider the health impacts. Whilst vaping is often described as less harmful than smoking, this does not mean it's inherently harmless. Research by the World Health Organization and Public Health England indicates that e-cigarettes contain nicotine along with other chemicals and fine particles that can affect your lung health and cardiovascular function. Long-term health impacts are still being studied, but existing evidence already raises concerns, particularly for young users whose bodies are still developing. Secondly, there are mental health implications. Nicotine is a highly addictive substance that affects the brain's reward system. According to the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institute on Drug Abuse, nicotine exposure in adolescence can impact brain development, increasing susceptibility to addiction and potentially affecting attention, mood regulation, and impulse control. Thirdly, we must consider the behavioural consequences. Studies from organisations such as Cancer Research UK and the UK Office for Health Improvement and Disparities show that the increasing normalisation of vaping has led many young people to experiment with nicotine products, despite never having smoked cigarettes. This raises concerns about creating a new generation of nicotine dependency rather than reducing it. There is also a financial dimension to consider. While individual devices may appear inexpensive, maintaining a regular vaping habit can become costly over time. Research into youth vaping behaviours has shown that frequent users can spend substantial amounts each month on disposable devices or refill pods. For young people in particular, this represents money diverted away from savings, education, or healthier activities. By making vapes prescription only, we would not be banning them outright. Instead, we would ensure that they are used in the context for which they were originally intended as a structured medical aid to help smokers quit under professional guidance. This approach achieves three important objectives. It supports smokers who wish to stop, reduces accessibility for young people, and places vaping within a healthcare framework rather than a commercial marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. I have three members listed to speak next in this order. So Eve Carruthers, Jack Byrne, and then Pete Luce. So firstly, Eve Carruthers.
I stand against this motion because it represents what I would call regulatory cowardice, the desperate attempt to appear tough while actually legitimising the very harm we claim to oppose. The prescription-only model doesn't solve vaping, rather it launders it. Let me speak with uncomfortable directness. Jersey's own data tells a devastating story. In our Year 12 students, regular vaping already outpaces regular smoking by nearly 5 to 1. While we've congratulated ourselves on reducing adult smoking from 23% to 13% since 2013, we've sleepwalked into a new nicotine epidemic among children. The prescription model proposes to address this by creating what exactly? A two-tier system where adult addiction receives medical blessing, while teenage addiction becomes criminal curiosity. The Australian experiment, now 4 years running, exposes this fraud with brutal clarity. When Australia implemented prescription-only vaping in October 2021, policymakers promised two outcomes: reduced youth vaping and accessible cessation support for smokers. The reality? Catastrophic failure on both counts. Fewer than 10% of Australian vapers hold prescriptions, not because they don't want to quit smoking, but because doctors refuse to prescribe these unregulated products. The Australian Medical Association actively discourages prescriptions, citing correctly the absence of long-term safety data and therapeutic approval. Meanwhile, a thriving black market has emerged, selling unregulated, mislabeled, and often contaminated products to both adults and children. This is the paradox the differing side refuses to confront. The prescription model creates the worst possible incentives, maintaining the fiction that vaping is a medical treatment, while ensuring that the actual supply chain operates entirely outside of medical oversight. We become complicit in a theatre of harm reduction, performing regulation while enabling proliferation. Consider the neurobiological reality that we're negotiating with. Nicotine addiction hijacks the same dopaminergic pathways as cocaine and heroin. The adolescent brain, particularly the prefrontal cortex, which governs impulse control and risk assessment, remains structurally incomplete until age 25. When we tell a 16-year-old that vaping requires a prescription, we don't communicate danger. We communicate restricted pleasure, the most powerful marketing message possible to an adolescent brain optimized for reward-seeking and social transgression. The environmental argument compounds the absurdity. Jersey banned single-use vapes in February of 2026, precisely because 95.65% of our young vapers preferred these devices. Yet the prescription model does nothing to address rechargeable device waste, lithium battery fires, or the heavy metals, lead, nickel, and chromium that reach from discarded devices into our soil. We've banned the disposable symptom whilst proposing to medicalise the rechargeable devices. But here is my most provocative contention. The prescription model reveals our ambivalence about addiction itself. We remain culturally conflicted, simultaneously horrified by teenage vaping and reluctant to condemn adult nicotine dependence as anything other than choice. The prescription framework resolves this tension dishonestly, allowing us to pretend that we're treating a medical condition while actually perpetuating a consumer market. It transforms the vape from a recreational drug delivery system into a medical device without requiring evidence that it functions as medicine. Jersey's Help to Quit service achieved a 54% self-reported quit rate in 2024 using established nicotine replacement therapies, and only 10% of clients used vapes. Yet 81% of those achieved carbon monoxide verified cessation. This data suggests vaping offers no unique therapeutic advantage, only unique risks. So why preserve it? Because we've convinced ourselves that harm reduction requires maintaining every possible option, even when those options undermine our stated goals. The prescription model is not a middle ground between prohibition and free markets. It's the worst synthesis, combining the bureaucratic overhead of medical regulation within the public health surrender of continued availability. It creates regulatory theatre, visible enough to satisfy concerned parents, porous enough to satisfy commercial interests, and ineffective enough to ensure the problem persists. Jersey deserves intellectual honesty in its public health policy. Our children deserve clarity, not mixed messages about medicine that requires a doctor's note, but remains unavailable in pharmacies. And because we have sufficient evidence from our island's statistics to Australia's failed experiment to recognise that this model serves neither public health nor individual freedom, serving only our collective desire to afford hard choices.
Thank you, Eve. So the next member to speak is Jack.
Thank you, sir. Nicotine is more addictive than heroin. 68% of adult smokers want to quit, and less than 1 in 10 succeed. When people quit smoking, it's a spontaneous decision to take back some control in their lives. Why should the government oversee this? Moreover, the availability of vaping has created a powerful tool as a 95% healthier alternative to cigarettes. But by restricting vape to prescription only, people are bound to go back to the easy, unhealthy, environmentally destructive cigarettes. But vapes serve as more than just a cigarette alternative, with whole businesses built around them and taxes from them providing money to the government. Why shouldn't we prioritise restricting advertisements and limiting flavours, rather than losing money creating a complex system to penalise the average smoker? This system also leaves loopholes for people with prescriptions to fill the gap in the market by reselling vapes with huge markups, or even worse, selling unregulated vapes to far more toxic. Why should vapes be moved to prescriptions? when people will just move back to cigarettes or go to a black market. Not only is it ineffective, but it disrespects our autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. The next member to speak is Pete Luce.
Thank you, sir. This Youth Assembly has been asked to consider the proposition that vapes should become prescription only. In principle, this seems plausible, even viable, an action with many benefits. However, there are a great many repercussions which we must all weigh up if this action is to be taken any further than theory. If a person who wants to quit smoking is given the choice between a 2-minute purchase for a pack of cigarettes or a week waiting for an appointment to acquire a vape, which do you think a person addicted to a substance harder to quit than cocaine would choose? Vaping is 95% healthier than smoking tobacco and has succeeded in preventing a great deal of damage because of that. The selling point is it is just as easy to get and is a healthier choice. Making it harder makes people less likely to choose that healthier option. More people smoking, worse public health. I'd like you to all consider this next point, a point proven time and time again with the restriction and prohibition of substances. This was seen with the prohibition of alcohol in America, the ban of LSD worldwide, and the subsequent war of drugs. History has shown us that when you strictly regulate a high-demand product, it pushes the market underground. Vapes will still remain in circulation, as all controlled substances do. There is no denying that. However, their production will begin to slip into dangerous, unregulated territory, where chemicals that do cause more harm than tobacco will be seen in these vapes. This is where we see the real public health crisis. Please consider the repercussions of restriction seen through history and the issues posed by making access to a healthy alternative more difficult. This motion has its heart in the right place, yet goes about it in the wrong way and will cause more harm than good. Thank you.
Thank you. I will allow one more speaker. Well, maybe room for two, but we have to give the mover of the proposition time to reply. But the next member to speak is Melissa Rodriguez.
Thank you, sir. I can guarantee that almost everyone in this chamber knows someone who actively vapes. Whether it is a friend or a loved one, vapes are everywhere, and it is a predicament. They're displayed with vibrant packaging, enticing flavours and childish names that are clearly being marketed towards our youth. A report conducted by the Government of Jersey found that 60% of Year 12 students have tried vaping, with 25% currently vaping. Whilst it is known that smoking in itself is harmful, people tend to glorify vaping as a healthier alternative. The full extent of the health risks surrounding vaping is still unknown, posing many serious health concerns to users. Although evidence from the NHS strongly shows that vaping aids with smoking cessation, a study conducted by UCL shows that over 1 million adults vape without ever having touched a cigarette. The intention is not to limit the freedom of adults, as some may argue, but to prevent the initiation of vaping amongst our youth. It is a sacrifice that must be made when young people's lives are being exponentially threatened. Evidently, widespread availability of vapes in our market is not beneficial, especially when businesses directly allow the unlawful sales to continue in order to make a profit. Around 1 in 5 vape shops are knowingly selling vapes to minors, according to the UK Health and Safety Executive. On the other hand, young people are also being sold vapes by peers or ordering them through online services. Objectively, everything leads back to the laws and practices surrounding vapes. If businesses cannot be trusted to regulate the underage sale of electronic cigarettes, then how can we ensure that children are safe from the dangers of vaping? If we are able to act now, we can prevent a serious epidemic instead of attempting to reverse it later down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I will allow some more speakers. So the next speaker is Penelope Deschamps.
Thank you. As other members of the JYA have stated, vaping was introduced as a solution, a bridge to help long-term smokers move towards a nicotine-free life. It was designed as a tool to eventually stop smoking, not a lifestyle product. But today, that purpose has been completely reversed. Instead of helping people quit, vaping is pulling new users in. Evidence increasingly shows that non-smokers who vape are far more likely to go on to smoke traditional cigarettes. The bridge is no longer leading people away from harm, it is leading them towards it. And look at who this solution is now marketed to. It was never meant for teenagers. It was meant for a 50-year-old trying to undo decades of damage. Yet today's market is flooded with flavours like bubblegum, candy floss, and unicorn milk. These are not designed to help hardened smokers quit, they are designed to hook a new generation. Access is part of the problem. Right now, high nicotine vapes can be picked up as easily as a chocolate bar in many local shops. That is not regulation, it is negligence. We are allowing children to access addictive substances with almost no barriers. And then there's the issue of what's actually inside these devices. Unlike regulated medical products, many disposable vapes contain chemical stabilizers and heavy metals used to prolong shelf life and battery performance. These are substances being inhaled directly into developing lungs, and people say that it is up to adults to make choices for themselves. But what about the children? Is this really their choice? For health, the consequences are higher than ever. The respiratory and cardiovascular damage linked to vaping is becoming increasingly evident, and the healthcare systems are already feeling the strain. My peer Ashley has stated that adults should have the right to make decisions for their own health. However, everyone, including non-vapers, will have to pay the price that it puts on public health, with the pressure on hospitals being higher than ever. Across Europe, the long-term cost of treating vaping-related illnesses is projected to reach billions annually. And who pays for that? Not the companies profiting from addiction, the taxpayer. Some have argued that restricting vapes to prescription only would create a black market, but we cannot allow fear to dictate policy. We do not legalize harmful substances simply because they might be sold illegally. Public health must come before convenience. A prescription model does something simple but essential. It reframes nicotine for what it is, a controlled, addictive substance that should be used only under medical guidance, not sold as a casual consumer product. So let's be clear, if vaping is truly a tool to quit smoking, then it belongs in the hands of doctors, not shopkeepers. If it is medicine, regulate it like medicine. And if we fail to act, we are not just tolerating addiction, we are allowing it to become the norm. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope. Does any other member wish to speak in relation to this proposition? Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The main the primary issue keeping drugs such as vapes legal is that the buyer of these of the vapes is not the only one. It's not the only one being negatively affected due to negative externalities. The negative effects on third parties from consuming vapes, such as the often hard to avoid smoke, frequently causing a long-lasting stench that's damaging to their own health, and the reduced attention for injuries and diseases caused by not caused by themselves due to the increased demand for healthcare from those suffering from illnesses caused by vaping addictions, as well as the environmental damage and increased spending on healthcare.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone other member wish to speak before I? Alaric.
Thank you, sir. Although I do see the short-term losses for the youth especially, if this were to pass, I'd like the Assembly to consider the long-term benefits, especially for the youth who have not been introduced to vapes already. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Does anyone other member wish to speak in relation to this proposition? If no other member wishes to speak, then I call upon Charlie to reply.
I'd like to thank everyone who's participated in the debate. I found all your views very interesting. I'd like everyone to vote accordingly.
Thank you, Charlie. Well, in that case, I ask the greffier to open the voting. If all members... Yes. I'm reminded that even if you've not spoken during the debate, you can still cast your vote. So if you haven't cast your vote, then please do cast your vote. Thank you. If every member has had the opportunity of voting, then I will ask the greffier to close the voting. And I can announce that the proposition has been adopted. 14 votes pour, 9 votes contre, and no abstentions. Thank you. So we will move on to the second item of public business. And I will ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The Jersey Youth Assembly is asked to decide whether it is of opinion that social media should be banned for under 16s.
So, Leah, I invite you to outline or propose the proposition.
Thank you, sir. Nearly 7 in 10 young people report seeing harmful content online. 30% of teenagers have experienced cyberbullying. These are not small problems, these are serious risks. While social media may have some benefits, it is dangerous for young people whose brains and identities are still developing. It harms mental health, it exposes children to harmful content, and it affects their education. When it comes to harmful content, around 1 in 5 young people report that social media has made their mental health worse. Young people are constantly exposed to harmful content such as misogyny, self-harm, unrealistic beauty standards, racism and violence. This can lead to anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and in some cases even suicides. In the same way, when it comes to online predators, about half of minors reported being contacted online by strangers pretending to be their age. Over 80% of grooming cases start on social media. Social media makes it easy to create fake profiles and approach young users. Another major reason why I believe social media should be banned for under 16s is because it can have a significant negative impact on education. Studies show that teenagers can focus on studying for only 14 minutes before being distracted by their phones. Nearly 40% of teens admit that social media harms their ability to complete assignments. Social media is deliberately created to be addictive so that app developers can earn money, while our mental health and education suffer. Some people argue that it's impossible to completely restrict social media use for under 16s and that they can just simply lie about their age. But stronger age verification systems are already being introduced. As most of us already know, the Australian government has recently enforced a social media ban for under 16s. They are now fining social media companies the equivalent of up to £25 million for serious repeated breaches. Even if some young people can bypass restrictions, many can still be protected. So let's be clear, social media harms mental health, it exposes young people to dangerous content and strangers,
and it damages education. And for these reasons, I commend this proposition to the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Is the proposition seconded? Yes, it's seconded. Thank you. So does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Maya, I think your light was on first, so Maya.
Thank you, sir. Growing up today means growing up with smartphones in our pockets and social media feeds that never stop. In my school, many students struggle to stay off social media, even during the short 6 hours we are meant to be learning, and phones are often confiscated. This is not surprising when we look at the data. Around 95% of teenagers now have access to a smartphone, and about 45% say that they are online almost constantly. Constant connectivity has become normal for our generation. However, normal does not always mean healthy. Researchers and health organizations have increasingly linked heavy social media use with rising levels of teen depression, anxiety, and poor sleep. For example, studies have found that teenagers who spend several hours a day on social media are significantly more likely to report mental health difficulties. Online harassment is also a significant issue. About 1 in 3 young people report experiencing cyberbullying, and research shows that these incidents have increased as social media use has expanded. Unlike traditional bullying, cyberbullying can follow someone everywhere, into their homes, bedrooms, and even late at night. Adolescence is a critical stage for emotional and brain development. During this time, young people are especially sensitive to social feedback and comparison. Social media platforms are designed to maximize engagement through likes, notifications, and endless scrolling, which can encourage addiction-like habits, sleep deprivation, and unhealthy comparisons. Surveys show that nearly 9 in 10 11 to 15-year-olds go online every day, meaning these influences affect the majority of young people. For these reasons, I support a policy that sets a minimum age of 16 for unrestricted social media accounts. Importantly, this is not about banning technology or isolating young people. Instead, it should be combined with verified, age-appropriate platforms for younger teens, stronger default privacy settings, and well-funded digital literacy education in schools, so young people can learn how to use technology safely and responsibly. This approach recognizes that social media is a powerful tool, but one that should be introduced at the right stage of development. By protecting younger teenagers during a vulnerable period, we can help them build confidence, resilience, and healthy habits before giving them full access. In conclusion, social media does have its benefits, but evidence shows that unrestricted access at a young age can expose teenagers to harassment, addictive design, and harmful comparisons. Setting a minimum age of 16 is not about restricting freedom, it's about giving young people the time and protection they need to grow up healthily in a digital world. If we know something is harming young people, doing nothing about it is not neutrality, it is negligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. The next member to speak is Lexi.
Thank you, sir. Fellow members of the Jersey Youth Assembly, today I stand before you as I am firmly against the proposal to ban social media for those under the age of 16. While the intention behind such a ban may be being framed as protection, we must ask ourselves a deeper and maybe even perhaps a more urgent question. Protection at what cost? When we remove young people from social media entirely, we do not simply limit their screen time. We limit voices, access to information, and the ability to participate in modern civic and political life. Firstly, we must recognise that social media has become one of the most significant spaces for political engagement in the modern world. For many young people, it is the first place they encounter political ideas, social movements, and public debate. A blanket ban effectively excludes them from a large and critical area of democratic participation. At 16, young people are already expected to form political opinions, study politics in school, and even in our very island, prepare to vote in general elections. Yet, this proposal would deny them access to one of the primary platforms where those discussions take place. But this issue goes deeper than merely participation alone. It concerns political censorship. When the state decides that an entire age group cannot access public platforms of discussion, it sets a dangerous precedent. It sends a message that young people are not trusted to hear or contribute to political discourse. Throughout history, restricting access to communication has rarely protected democracy. It has in fact weakened it, or in some severe cases, dismantled it entirely. However, what I believe is the most concerning is the disproportionate impact such a ban would have on marginalised communities. Social media is not simply entertainment for many young people. It is a lifeline. For young people from ethnic minorities, the LGBTQ+ community, disabled communities, or those living in isolated areas such as Jersey or our Channel Island neighbours, social media often provides the first opportunity to find representation, support networks, and voices that reflect their lived experiences, of which, in traditional media institutions, these voices have been historically underrepresented or often intentionally silenced. Social media has been a key player in equalising that inequity. Grassroots activism, awareness campaigns, and community building efforts frequently begin and prosper online, with young people often being at the forefront of them. Removing under-16s from these spaces risks silencing precisely those voices that are already fighting to be heard. Consider a young person growing up here in Jersey who feels isolated in their identity. Social media may be their only place they can encounter people like them that they can relate to. A ban does not protect this young person. It cuts them off from the support and knowledge that they need the most. Of course, none of this is to deny the excellent points made by my colleagues. Social media does present challenges. Issues such as misinformation and fake news, harmful content, and online safety. These are all real and serious problems. But banning access entirely is not a solution. It is an avoidance of responsibility. Instead of exclusion, we should be advocating for education in schools across the island, stronger digital literacy, and encouraging platforms to move towards safer platform designs. Ultimately, this debate is about so much more than age restrictions. It's about whose voices we allow in the public sphere. A blanket ban on social media for under-16s risks silencing young people, restricting political engagement, and disproportionately harming marginalised communities who rely on these platforms to be seen and heard. So, vote against the proposition and call it out for what it truly is: censorship. And as we all know, history has never judged kindly the societies that silence their young people, and I can assure you, it will not start with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lexi. So the next member to speak is Alana Royston.
Thank you, sir. Hello all. I want you to picture something. Picture if something that gave you comfort and a sense of escapism in times of stress or sadness was suddenly stripped away from you. This is what will happen if you ban social media for people under 16. I myself am a 15-year-old about to be 16, and I can assure you that social media has had a positive impact on my life, and I can promise others feel the same. Fellow members, I'm sure you can relate to getting home from a tiring day of school and unwinding with a half-an-hour scrolling session. Whilst I understand that social media doesn't always have a positive impact, I think the benefits outweigh the risks. As I mentioned before, it can give people, especially teens dealing with exams and changes in their lives, a chance to be distracted from all of the chaos and stress they are dealing with. It can also help teens to find new interests and communities and discover who they really are as a person. Something I think that not many people think about is the fact that social media can be incredibly educational, in the sense that it can keep you in check with what's happening with the world around you. And there are many videos and accounts online dedicated to helping teens with revision in a fun and and engaging way. I think that social media is especially beneficial to teens, which is why I am against a complete ban. As most teens are mature enough to view online content and recognise what is harmful or inappropriate, younger children may struggle with this. That is why, if a ban is to go ahead, I propose it should be for under 13s instead, as to prevent younger children from being susceptible to harmful content that may have a lasting impact. Thank you for listening.
Yes, I'm keen to get some speakers from this side of the Assembly. So we will start with Lewis. Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, JYA. Bandura et al. Was a psychological experiment conducted on children about social learning theory. This experiment consisted of 24 children with all separated into different playrooms and a TV screen and a Bobo doll. The TV screen displayed of a man or a woman model displaying aggressive and physical and verbal behaviour towards the Bobo doll. And the results showed that over half of the children imitated this behaviour with physically and verbal abuse towards the Bobo doll. Now let's look at youth crime within Jersey. In 2024, police reports have shown that youth crime to be involved with nearly 900 people. Even though the amount of youth crime that is happening is remaining stable, the youth population in Jersey is constantly decreasing. Development occurs throughout our whole lifetime and primarily when we are younger. Most children have been exposed to social media, and violence is often displayed on these apps. If that's to do with video games or real-life current affairs. Social learning theory shows that children are most likely going to imitate a person if displayed as a role model, such as a social media content creator. This can lead to aggressive, discriminative behaviour towards other people as well. The BBC has announced that TikTok has let harmful content rise within their platform, and TikTok staff are being told to prioritise monitoring political engagement instead of harmful content. A 13-year-old boy from Sheffield was arrested for being connected to violent social media posts for promoting quote-unquote school wars. Another teenager was arrested in London for posting about the same thing. This is not only influencing children around the United Kingdom, but endangering students who are just there to learn. Just because these incidents are happening in the United Kingdom does not stop it from happening in Jersey. Social media is causing a change in development through adolescence and causing more violent and aggressive behaviour. A social media ban for under 16s can cause a difference with the development of adolescents without the exposure of inappropriate content online. This is why I urge you to vote for a ban for social media to be banned for under 16s, not just to reduce youth crime, but also for the protection of everyone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lewis. So the next member to speak is Megan,
Thank you, sir.
followed by Travis, and then Oliver.
I am against the proposition of banning social media for under 16s. Firstly, I'd like to point out that the majority of those in favour of this proposition, in and out of this room, are those 16 and older. If this ban was to come into play, it would not be them who are affected and would rather be people my age. Now, what is social media? Social media is simply defined as an internet-based form of communication. I believe that this term is too broad of a thing to even attempt to ban. It includes things like TikTok and Instagram, which, yes, I do believe should have more restrictions for those who are under 16, but it also includes things like WhatsApp and YouTube. WhatsApp is a social media platform predominantly used by parents to keep in contact with their children, and YouTube is a platform that has only recently been banned in school due to adverts rather than the actual content of the videos. A few of my points have actually already been spoken by Lexi and Alana, so I will not repeat those and rather move on. My next point is simple. Educate the adults and not just the children. Adults always seem to be removed from the conversation of online safety. It's always tell the kids the problem and not explain to the adults what they should do to stop their children getting hurt online in the first place. I'm against this proposition, but not what it wants to do. A social media ban would be good, but not for those under 16 and rather younger teens, like 13-year-olds. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. The next member to speak is Travis.
Sir, I don't stand here for the honourable titles. I don't stand here for the lobbyists whispering in your ears, or the experts in their ivory towers in St. Helier who thinks our lives are just rows on a spreadsheet to be deleted. I stand here for the people. I stand here for the 15-year-old girl who finds her only solace, her only community, and her only voice through a screen. I stand for the working-class families who are being told by a cabal of out-of-touch members that they aren't fit to raise their own children. I stand for every islander who is sick to their back teeth of being told, no, stop and obey, by a government that has forgotten they are our servants, not our masters. They want to talk about safety. Let's call it what it is. The theft of our liberty. Where were you when the tech giants were harvesting our data? You were silent. Where were you when the algorithms were being rigged for profit? You looked the other way. You failed to regulate the powerful, so now you decide to imprison the innocent. You want to turn Jersey into a digital police state. You want our IDs, you want our faces in your database. You want to track every message, every like, every private thought. This isn't a ban, this is a siege, and the numbers don't lie. 97% of us are already online. 95% of us have smartphones. You cannot enforce this ban without turning every home in Jersey into a surveillance hub. This isn't protection, this is a power grab wrapped in a lie. Even the strictest ban cannot stop a team with a VPN or a parent's phone. Enforcement will cost millions before it even began, and the Chief Minister has repeatedly stated that he wants a government that is small and efficient, which this would not allow. The censors think we are small, they think we are weak, they think they can pat us on the head and tell us it's for our own good, while they pickpocket our freedom. Well, the student giant has waked. They say Jersey's families can't be trusted. I say I trust the mothers of Jersey 1,000 times more than any minister. I trust the fathers of Jersey more than any bureaucrat. And I trust the youth of this island to leave us into the future that you are too old, too scared, and too disconnected to even understand. While they have titles, we have the truth. They have the gavel, we have the people. They have the past, we have the future. They want to silence you. They have to go for me first. I'm your voice, I'm your shield, and I'm the wall that their tyranny will break against as long as there is breath in my lungs. I will not let these dinosaurs stomp out the light of the new generations. They want to push it into the shadows. Fine. We survived occupations on this island before. We'll survive this one, but we're not hiding anymore. We are standing up for the 74% of us who stay connected to our friends through these platforms. You aren't saving us, you are isolating us. You're trying to turn our island into a graveyard of connection. I refuse to let this happen. To every young person watching, do not be afraid. I'm standing here so you don't have to hide. This is our island, this is our home, we are taking back to the Assembly. Pass your laws, sign your papers, build your digital pages, but know this, a law without the consent of the people is just garbage on paper. You cannot ban a movement, you cannot not delete a generation. I'll never ever silence out of Jersey. In fact, today I had the opportunity to speak with the person who legalised gay marriage in Jersey, and they said to me that banning social media would literally set back gay relationships by over 10 years. I am the voice of the voiceless. Bring down this ban, bring power to their families. Instead of banning them, educate. We hold tech giants accountable to their algorithms. We give parents the tools to protect their own. We don't need to read your private messages. Let's say. There's no reason to ban people when you can teach them. It is draconian and it's outdated. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. So the next member I had to speak is Felix McKinnon.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to firstly talk about Lexi's previous point, which was banning social media, or anything for that matter, is on a similar spectrum to censorship. There is a threshold, maybe we don't know it yet, where you stop banning things that are unhealthy and start banning things that not necessarily are negative, but just that you don't like, that don't agree with your specific views. I'd also like to reinforce that social media is not just YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. Some would classify the news as social media because it's social, it's media, and it's online. According to the UK Press Gazette in 2022, I believe it was 54% of people now prefer reading online news in the UK. As well as that, in the USA, 60%. We can't just keep pretending that we're banning only the negative parts of social media. Banning social media means banning every part of it. And if we're transferring all our news from physical media to the internet, that means that we're just going to let people under 16, people who are going to be able to vote soon, especially on Ireland, are therefore going to be able to vote and have no idea who they're voting for. We don't have mandatory voting at this point in time, but if anyone in this room wants mandatory voting to be a thing, you've also got to therefore expect us to have social media. Because if we can't know who we're voting for, we might as well not vote. And at that point, what's the point? Equally, Leah mentioned that 30% of adolescents experience cyberbullying. I've got a figure from the BBC in 2024 that says 15% report that cyberbullying. That means half of those people feeling that way are victims of negative stigma and that sort of thing online. That's why I feel that instead of just banning social media, given that we're all going to one day, whether it was banned when we were growing up or not, find our way onto it, why don't we encourage positive techniques and positive relationships with apps and programs, and then, instead of stumbling onto it and having no idea how to distinguish fact from fiction and positive from negative news, we can actually identify what is and isn't good. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. The next member to speak is Oliver Macready.
Thank you, sir. Today I am speaking in favour of a social media ban for under 16s. While some of my colleagues have focused on political issues and censorship, I took a different take. What is being censored is our traditional childhood experiences and relationships that we formulate at a young age. When we're young, we should be able to go out and enjoy life without pressures of social media, or without pressures from anyone else. Going to the park, going on a ride on your bike, or reading books should be a key integral part of our childhood. But that is being slowly taken away and taken over by constant social media use by people my age and our age. A second point that I'd like to make is that kids nowadays could be less socially able to interact. Take going for an interview. If all you've done throughout your childhood is interact with people online, over messages, and less in person, then you have less interpersonal skills and less ability to interact with others and make small talk, which are really key parts of people's days and people's lives that much of our older generation have taken for granted. A third point that I'd like to make is that social media does more harm than good in exposing young people to harmful or extremist content at a young age. Whilst, yes, we do have the right to vote at 16, I don't believe that social media is the best way to inform our young people politically. It should be done in our classrooms on pen and paper and through PowerPoints, as opposed to online through sources that you may not be able to verify or trust. Overall, I believe that social media negatively impacts our children, especially people who cannot control or regulate their own screen time at a young age. They would end up having a better quality of life without social media as a distraction. A caveat to this, though, would be under 16, especially those in secondary school, would be allowed to have access to messaging tools like WhatsApp to stay in contact with parents, and essential services on technology would still be allowed to use. The main bans would be on addictive apps such as Instagram and TikTok, which take hours of screen time a day, certainly from friends that I know. Thank you very much.
So the next member to speak is Oscar.
Thank you, sir. I think Oliver covered quite a lot of what I was going to say, but I'd like to go to my colleague Alana. In your speech, you mentioned about when you get home and having a 30-minute scroll on TikTok, and lots of people do that and they enjoy it. But I'd like to say I don't think that is a very healthy way of finding enjoyment. I mean, I know we all do it, but there are plenty of other ways, and frying your dopamine receptors constantly is not the best way to reduce stress. I said to my colleague Felix before, the news online doesn't count as social media. The Oxford Language Dictionary definition was, that platforms that allow users to create and share content and participate in social networking. So that wouldn't fit into the news wouldn't fit into the classification of social media anyway. And I think it's really important. One of the things people are missing is that it should be the schools and it should be parents and things like that who are slowly integrating political knowledge and learning and stuff like that into their children's lives, rather than being exposed to both extremes of the right and left and other things online. And I think anyone here who has a younger sibling or a younger member of their family, would any of you who are against the motion to ban social media want your younger sibling or whatever to be seeing things like porn? I mean, it was literally a few weeks ago there was an incident on TikTok where several porn videos managed to get through TikTok's verification and were getting onto people's For You pages. And I think that just shows it's not a safe place to be. Thank you.
The next member to speak is Eve Carruthers, followed by Alicia.
Don't ban the platform, fix the product. Why? Because this motion mistakes removal for protection, and in doing so condemns my generation and future generations to digital illiteracy at the precise moment when digital fluency determines life outcomes. Australia's ban, implemented in December 2025, is already proving what research predicted, that prohibition doesn't reduce harm. It redistributes it to darker corners where surveillance can't follow. Let me begin with the neuroscience that should inform this debate, not the neuroscience typically weaponized to justify fear. Yes, social media algorithms exploit neural reward circuits, and yes, the teenage prefrontal cortex remains myelinated and vulnerable to compulsive behaviors. But what the Surgeon General's advisory and subsequent longitudinal research actually reveals is that the relationship between social media use and mental health is non-linear, moderated by content quality and fundamentally contingent on digital literacy. A 2024 US longitudinal study of 6,595 adolescents found that 3 hours of daily social media use doubled depression and anxiety risk. But crucially, the same research found that limited use, under 30 minutes, showed no significant negative outcomes, and in some populations demonstrated positive social connection outcomes. The variable isn't presence or absence, it's competence. A ban treats all use as equivalent, thereby ignoring the evidence that skill acquisition, not abstinence, predicts healthy outcomes. Australia's under 16 ban, now 3 months operational, illustrates this failure in real time. Alina Mitrevska, an 18-year-old member of the Australia's East Safety Youth Council, describes the policy as disingenuous for removing entire online spaces for young people, versus just talking and trying to fix those particular issues. Within weeks of implementation, Reach Out Kids helpline received nearly 100 contacts from distressed teenagers losing their support networks. 95.7% of LGBTQ youth in Australia rely on social media for emotional support that offline environments often deny them. But I want to advance a more radical argument, one that challenges the paternalistic assumptions underlying this motion. While some frame social media as a risk to be managed by adults on behalf of children, I frame it as a competency that children must develop through guided exposure, precisely because the alternative is far more dangerous. Consider the research on digital amputation. When we ban social media until age 16, we don't delay exposure, we compress it. A 16-year-old with no prior guided experience encounters these platforms precisely when their prefrontal cortex is most susceptible to peer influence, when academic and romantic pressures peak, and when parental oversight naturally diminishes. We created a perfect storm. Maximum vulnerability meets maximum exposure meets minimum supervision. The ban doesn't ensure the developing brain encounters these platforms without any scaffolding of learned resilience. The University of East Anglia's research on ban effectiveness found no solid evidence that age restrictions improve mental health outcomes. Instead, they limit development online. I speak from lived experience that research corroborates. Through social media, I secured internships invisible to schools' career services and engaged directly with industry leaders. Conversations that required cold emailing skills, profile curation, and network building no classroom taught me. Albie Chervin, the 14-year-old Australian founder of Clover, remains online despite the ban because entrepreneurship requires digital presence, and his words haunt this debate. All the great things that have happened for me with it, but the social media ban is taking that away. The uncomfortable truth that people must confront is that social media has become the infrastructure of modern meritocracy. When we ban it for under 16s, we don't protect them equally. We protect the privileged children, those with private school connections, family networks, and offline enrichment opportunities, while devastating the life chances of those who rely on digital platforms to overcome geographic isolation, socioeconomic disadvantage, or identity-based marginalization. I propose what the Brookings Institution calls surgical intervention rather than amputation. Ban short-form algorithmic content for under 21s when the prefrontal cortex is still developing. Mandate that platforms prioritize meaningful content over engagement maximizing dopamine loops, and require parental oversight tools that function as training wheels, gradually reducing as digital literacy increases. Enforce strict penalties for algorithmic exploitation of minors. These approaches preserve the extraordinary good social media enables while addressing the genuine harms that the correctly identified by my peers. While some may argue that because children will circumvent restrictions anyway, we should ban them entirely, I invert this logic. Precisely because circumvention is inevitable, we must ensure that the circumvented path remains visible, regulated, and supportable. When we ban, we don't stop use. We stop knowing about use. We transform open platforms with safety features, content moderation, and crisis intervention resources into unregulated spaces where young people have no protections, no oversight, and no voice. Therefore, we cannot build resilience by removing the challenges that require it, and I urge you to reject this digital amputation and choose digital education instead.
Thank you, Eve. The next member to speak is Alicia. We may have a chance for one more speech after this, but so Alicia.
Thank you, sir. There is no doubt in my mind that social media has become a central part of our modern life. It allows people to communicate, share information, and access opportunities that previous generations, like our parents, could not have imagined. However, when we discuss its roles in the lives of young people, we must also examine the growing body of evidence highlighting its risks. There are several legitimate concerns which have led to this proposal. And firstly, I want to say, I believe that many people underestimate how young and vulnerable the age of 16 is. Moreover, the impact on mental health. Research from organisations such as the UK's Children's Commissioner, and the Royal Society for Public Health and the American Psychological Association has found associations between high levels of social media use and increased levels of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem among adolescents. Young people are frequently exposed to highly curated and graphic images and idealistic lifestyles online, not accurate to an average person's daily life, which can contribute to unrealistic comparisons and negative self-perception. Secondly, there are many online safety risks. Young users may encounter cyberbullying, harmful communities, misinformation, harmful ideas such as misogyny, misandry, and left-right-wing extremism or inappropriate content. Reports from organisations including the NSPCC and Ofcom highlight the scale of these risks, particularly when platforms recommend content algorithmically without sufficient safeguards. Thirdly, there are concerns about attention and educational outcomes. Research published in journals such as Nature Communications and studies referenced by the OECD suggest that excessive social media can contribute to reduced attention spans and may interfere with sleep, concentration, and academic performance. However, it is also important to acknowledge that social media is not entirely negative. It can provide educational benefits, including access to revision resources, collaborative learning, and the ability to connect with wider communities. Many young people also find supportive online spaces where they can explore interests, creativity, and career opportunities. For this reason, I believe the concerns are serious, but an outright ban may not be the most balanced long-term solution. Instead, I propose an alternative approach. Ministers and government should implement much stricter age verification systems and stronger content filtering requirements for search engines and online platforms. This would allow young people to continue accessing the educational and collaborative benefits of the internet while preventing exposure to harmful or inappropriate material. In practice, this does mean enabling young people to use the internet as a tool for learning and opportunity, while ensuring that harmful content, unsafe websites, and dangerous communities are filtered out before they can cause harm. Fellow members, the internet is an incredibly powerful resource. I'm not denying that. Our goal should not be to remove young people from it entirely, but to ensure that it's structured in a way that prioritizes safety and well-being. With stronger safeguards and responsible regulation, we can create an online environment that protects young people while still allowing them to benefit from the opportunities the digital world offers. So I ask of you to consider these points and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Well, I'm conscious that we're now at 3:30, so I will close the debate and I will ask Leah to reply, please. Leah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to everyone who participated in the debate on whether or not social media should be banned for under 16s. I'd like to ask everyone to vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. So I'm going to ask the greffier to open the voting, and just to clarify which way you vote. So if you press pour, that means you're in favour of a ban, and if you press contre, that means you're against a ban. So I'll ask the greffier to open the voting. I'll ask members to cast their votes, and even if you haven't spoken, you can still cast a vote. So if all members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I will ask the greffier to close the voting. Well, I can announce that the proposition has been very narrowly defeated. 11 votes pour, 12 votes contre, and 1 abstention. So that concludes public business, and I would like just to make a few closing remarks. And the first thing I want to say is I want to congratulate all of you on your fantastic contributions. I've been incredibly impressed by your questions and also by your speeches. I know the ministers were also impressed by your questions and found many of them very, very interesting and quite challenging. So I congratulate all of you on your contributions today. I think our island has a great future ahead of it, to judge by this. So well done. Yes. I'd also like to say a couple of thank yous, and particularly to the statescraft staff. I hope you'll agree that this afternoon's event has been well run and enjoyable, and that goes that was a result of a lot of hard work that's been put in by the statescraft. And I'd particularly like to, well, I congratulate all of them, but particularly like to mention Molly Gladwin, Pip Oliver, and Heidi Whitehead. So thank you particularly to each of them. So I hope you've enjoyed the new format. I hope all those listening as well have enjoyed the new format. And I hope that you're encouraged to participate in the next time round that it's being run. Jack, you had your light on.
Sir, on behalf of the JYA, we would like to say thank you so much for helping us with the debate today, and we would like to give you a big stomp.
Well, thank you. I feel myself well and truly stomped, so thank you very much indeed. Well, look, the last thing I'd like to say is that obviously we're approaching the elections on the 9th of June, so I want to thank you for your participation today, because it does encourage and support democracy, which is such an important and vital thing for our society and our island life. So thank you all again very much for your participation today. And I'm told finally that we may have some refreshments afterwards. So I encourage all of those who are able to stay for some refreshments. So thank you very much. I will now close the meeting of the Youth Assembly and hope to see you afterwards at the refreshments. So thank you very much again. Thank you.